the whole meeting for Monday, October 23rd is now called to order. Andrea, would you please call the roll?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is now 1:04 p.m. As a reminder to all in attendance, this meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the county's YouTube page. Calling the roll, Mr. Kelly.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Here.
Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Sweeney's absent at the moment. Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Schran. Mr. Schran's absent at the moment. Ms. Turner.
Present.
Ms. Conwell.
Present.
Ms. Stevens. Ms. Stevens is absent at the moment. Ms. Simon. Ms. Simon is absent at the moment. Council President Jones.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right, at this time, Andrea, has anyone signed in for public comment?
Yes. Joan Sporel.
Hello. Is this working? Yep.
Yes.
My name is Joan Spurl. I'm the Literacy Cooperative's Director of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. Thanks to all of Council for your previous approval of ARPA funds to support the program, and thank you so much to sponsors Cheryl Stevens for your early support, Meredith Turner, Sunny Simon, and Martin Sweeney, and to all of you for your service. Did any of you catch the recent United Way event about the Freakonomics of Cleveland with international best-selling co-author of the Freakonomics book series and host of Freakonomics Radio, Stephen Dubner? Just 10 minutes in, Stephen Dubner asked the audience, when is the best time to apply leverage to build human capital? The answer? From 0 to 3. Affirming why the Literacy Cooperative is so keen on Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, which is available from birth for all Cuyahoga County children. The 2-gen whole family approach, partnerships with organizations working with children and adults, and sharing resources with Imagination Library families. Through these efforts, we aim to advance equity and the economic mobility of families in our community. Why 0 to 3, you might ask? Well, Dubner elaborated, stating, in the quote, in the social sciences, there's a ton of research now that shows that the more a child gets in terms of language, you could really put this all under the umbrella of one word, which is love. If a child is loved and cared for, there are many advantages. But then there are specific subcategories. Language development is massive. The fact is that the earlier and the more you can apply that leverage of education, language, sustenance, and love, the better off that child will be, the better off the community will be, and the better off the society will be. This sounds obvious to me, but if you look at our policies, we don't have very good policies for actually accomplishing that, unquote. Yes, we know that brains are built, not born. They're built on a foundation of early experiences that provide either a strong or weak foundation. And human beings aren't evolved to read and write. We're evolved for spoken language, but to master reading and writing, we need to build the wiring in the brain to allow for fluent reading and writing later. The best time to do that is in the first 3 years of life, the critical window of opportunity for language development, and when 85% of brain development occurs. Having recognized the importance of early language and literacy environments, book ownership, and the power of reading aloud to children from birth for strengthening these foundations, the Literacy Cooperative has found Dolly Parton's Imagination Library, or DPIL, to be an incredibly cost-effective and efficient approach. Through DPIL, we have mailed over 1.5 million high-quality books to over 65,000 Cuyahoga County children at no cost to the families. Thank you. More coming.
Mackenzie Bartles.
Can I share something with Ms. Burrell?
Sure, Ms. Conwell.
I just wanted to let you know, staff went upstairs. I put the Literacy Cooperative information that you left with us in my newsletter that is currently going out now. So they're going to bring you a copy down. So if you're not going to leave, you'll get to see it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank
My
you, Mr.
colleague
Chair.
is following me. So.
Good afternoon. My name is Mackenzie Bartels, and I'm the Literacy Cooperative's Resource Development Manager.
Currently, 38,000 out of 66 eligible children are receiving a brand new, high-quality, age-appropriate Imagination Library book every month, instilling a love of books, learning, and family reading from an early age. That's 38,000 in Cuyahoga County. The program has only been available countywide since January of 2020. We want to keep it available long-term and enroll more children at birth so that our community can reap the full benefits. We know from research, including a Case Western Reserve University study, that the longer a child is enrolled in the program, the more likely they are to be ready for kindergarten. We have contact information for families, and we add value to Imagination Library by using this information to inform them of important community events and resources, including the Earned Income Tax Credit, Metro Health's Minority Men's Health Fair, the Multicultural Women's Health and Empowerment Expo, as well as tips and information about other resources. We communicate important information on behalf of our partners at no cost. Invest in Children saw over 600 website visits from a notification informing families about affordable, high-quality preschool in Cuyahoga County. Pre-for-CLE saw registration for one of their events double when we sent out a notification. The Black Child Development Institute, Ohio, and many partners have seen significant spikes in registration, participation, and web traffic when their information is included in our communications. Our annual survey conducted by the Center for Community Solutions consistently shows that children want to be read to more since they began receiving the books in the mail, and families are reading more often with their children. This increase is even more profound in the higher poverty zip codes. As children are exposed to more books, it's no surprise they are better prepared for kindergarten. In addition to the Case Western Reserve study previously mentioned, over 40 other studies have affirmed Imagination Library's positive impact on family literacy habits, kindergarten readiness, and supporting grade-level literacy by third grade. We hear from families regularly about the excitement that comes when they receive books in the mail each month. Who doesn't love books in the mail? Book ownership is key to building a strong language foundation. Through high-quality books, children are exposed to a richer array of vocabulary, syntax, semantics, and other concepts critical to the mastery of oral and written language. Young children learn best through high-quality interactions with real people and objects and crave attention from their parents. Thank you. Is that good?
Robert Papanetti.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Papanetti. I'm the president of the Literacy Cooperative. Recently, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the nation's report card, was released. There are many disturbing statistics, but perhaps none more glaring than the very important fourth grade reading score. The report showed that 75% of Cleveland students were not proficient in reading. You heard that correctly, 75%. Our typical reaction to this report and these statistics are to blame teachers and to blame the public schools. However, if we look upstream a bit, we'll see that many children are starting kindergarten woefully unprepared. Based on Ohio's Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, only 15% of children beginning kindergarten at Cleveland Public School in 2021 were assessed as having the foundation in place to engage in kindergarten curriculum, meaning 85% did not have the foundation in place when they began kindergarten. Our reaction to that is to get more tutoring programs, hire more literacy coaches and intervention specialists, which of course we need to do because the odds are greatly stacked against these children. According to Groundwork Ohio, too many children in Ohio are starting kindergarten behind, and children who start behind usually stay behind. We can continue to look upstream and find that 65% of 3- and 4-year-old children in Cleveland are not in school. Therefore, the foundation is or is not being laid at home. My purpose here is not to blame, but to share an opportunity we tend to overlook, and that is to identify ways to better support parents as their child's first teacher during the all-important first 3 years of their child's life. Getting books into home is one solution that we know works. The Literacy Cooperative leads the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program in Cuyahoga County, where we have 38,000 children enrolled. An analysis conducted by Case Western Reserve found a positive relationship between Imagination Library engagement and better kindergarten readiness. With the help of the state of Ohio, the lead agency for each local area, and that is the Literacy Cooperative for Cuyahoga County, is responsible to raise $25 per child per year to support this program. That's right, for an investment of $25, a child will get 12 books in the mail. We are asking Cuyahoga County to invest in the future of our community at a level of $250,000 per year for the next 2 years. Thank you for your attention to this very important matter.
Lou?
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm here to support Adam Spohr Reentry Office and other organizations presented today. It's not only because of the budget needs. It's actually about people's lives. Remember, our motto is thrive together, right? But I still don't see this coming fast enough. Today, the first day, at the 2227 Payne Avenue, there's another construction going on with the people inside of it. In the basement, that's one of the 2 spots having laundry facilities, only 3 washers and 3 dryers. That part is eliminated today because they want to install an elevator there. Having an elevator is a good idea, but the solution is to take out laundry space to make this elevator. On the other hand, the electrical systems in the whole building, would that really be thoroughly checked and repaired? So we will have a proper electricity to actually sustain this elevator? In the future, probably we will see after the elevator installed, people can get stuck in there Friday night and will not be able to come out until Monday morning or even later. Please, this budget cycle, we should stop putting bandage just to give every department some money, but not actually enough to sustain the important programs they are working on for the people in the community. The serious problem is not only in the city of Cleveland, it's also in all other cities in the county as well. If we do not correct certain issues, we will have more people incarcerated and fall into homelessness. The ARPA funds, yes, we cannot change it anymore, but the budget cycle we can control. Please find a way to fund the programs substantially and correctly, not just to give every department a little bit of something and wish they make miracles. We have hardworking people in all different departments, true, but they are not magicians, they are not miracle workers, even they try to. Public safety is a concern, especially right now in 2227 Payne Avenue. Last time I already reported the temporary blocking device for them to make a ramp fell down on people. So there will be more incidents coming up. However, homeless lives are not matters. So please understand, if we have to wait till federal government to point out the county jail has to be improved, do we really have something serious enough for federal government to say our homeless shelter or our some other services also needs the same dramatic improvement due to the disinvestment for decades? Thank you for your awareness and your effort. Please make sure all the health and human services will get actual proper funding, have good trainings on the new employees, which we need, workforce issue. Otherwise, none of our services will be delivered properly. Thank you.
Dawn Bestetter.
Good afternoon to the members of the County Council Committee. My name is Dawn Bestetter, and I am the principal of Abraham Lincoln School in Maple Heights. Our school services approximately 550 pre-K through first grade students. This is my 30th year as an educator in the Maple Heights City Schools, and my message is simple. I have firsthand knowledge of the benefits of equipping students with kindergarten or what we call school readiness skills. Our students come to school with a diverse background in Maple Heights of preschool experiences. Their exposure to books and having been read to prior to starting school varies. The research and my own observations confirm that these students have better vocabulary and comprehension skills, and they are more prepared and motivated to read when they are read to at a very young age. Programs like the Dolly Parton's Imagination Library helps to get books into the hands of our parents. We personally make sure all of our students who are qualified are enrolled. These books are a valuable resource to our parents and a constant reminder to them to continue to read to their children. The program is also very motivational to our children. They get a book in the mail every month for the first 5 years. The excitement for a child of getting a book in the mail is a very memorable experience. Our teachers and our parents express remorse that the program ends at age 5. This is definitely an invaluable resource to our community, our families, and our students. Thank you for your time.
Heidi Jones.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Heidi Jones. I am a kindergarten teacher at Maple Heights City Schools. This is my 18th year teaching kindergarten there. And I wanted to speak on behalf of the Literacy Cooperative and the funding for that. I have seen firsthand in prior years, especially with the onset of technology, how negatively some of that technology was impacting our kids. It was impacting communication skills with families, how families were parenting their children. And in the past year or so especially, I've seen slowly there being more kind of like back to basics coming back. The kids are bringing in books. They're interested in reading. They're excited to share the books they have at home, and they're bringing those in. And then we started seeing more and more of the books they were bringing in were quality books that we were also using in the classroom. I'm getting a lot more like, I have that book at home, and I have that book at home. And the kids are really excited about it. And looking back, those students are receiving those books as a part of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. And I'm seeing more and more families as a result really taking in reading as part of their family dynamic once again. Those kids are getting, the read to me at night, and they're getting their bedtime stories back. And the importance of that with communication skills and listening skills, all those are transferring back into the schools. And we're seeing, more of the have and have nots. You're seeing the kids that have these early childhood experiences through programs from the Literacy Cooperative. And then we have those kids that aren't. But the kids that have those are setting the precedents for the other ones of how important those are. And because of some of the skills, they also are able to come into the classrooms and share with their peers reading skills already and the love of reading and sharing those things with, when we're doing show and tell, instead of bringing technology and tablets and stuff, they're actually bringing books again, which is amazing. So slowly that's starting to come back. And I think the family dynamics that's building in, the communication skills that the students are bringing with them again, and with how many of our students in Cuyahoga County that are starting school so far behind their peers, I find programs like this, we're starting to see like real positive hope in the kids that are coming to us and the families. And I think this is a huge part of the foundation of that is we're giving the families the foundations that they need. So thank you, Council.
Ed Jermachik.
Good afternoon. My name is Ed Gemerchek. I'm the Vice President of Behavioral Health at the YMCA of Greater Cleveland. I came here to speak about the Adams Board, but I could also say a few words about our support that Whitehaven receives from the Office of Reentry and Office of Homeless Services. But I will go on and say something about, first of all, about the Adams Board. Whitehaven is a program of the YMCA of Greater Cleveland formed in 1993 to provide addiction treatment and temporary housing to some of our county's most vulnerable members. Located in the CMHA Carl B. Stokes Mall at 60th and Woodland, Whitehaven provides an array of treatment services to those with substance use disorders and with co-occurring mental health disorders. Whitehaven specializes in serving women and men who have experienced homelessness, who are re-entering the community from incarceration, and who are seeking to recover from opioid use disorder. Whitehaven receives Cuyahoga County support through the Adams Board for its 80-bed recovery housing program. This recovery housing program provides a safe, sober, temporary home for men and women to work on their recovery, to receive treatment services, to give and receive peer support, and because of who we serve, to find employment and permanent housing. The program is unique in that it serves both men and women and specifically targets those seeking to recover from opioid addiction. In 2022, our recovery housing program served 241 women and men. 80% achieved stable housing upon exit. 78% improved their family and social supports. 77% found jobs or job training. The Adams Board also helps Whitehaven serve those who don't have insurance or insurance coverage for the services we provide. This is especially helpful to Whitehaven as we serve those who are homeless who may have been living on the street and may not yet have insurance coverage. The Adams Board keeps close tabs on our services by reviewing our regular outcome reports, reviewing incident reports, and any client complaints that are made. In the past year, the board assessed different elements of the Whitehaven program quarterly. The board has provided behavioral health trainings to the community, many of which Whitehaven staff have attended. They've advocated the state of Ohio for behavioral health issues in our field. They've kept us abreast of behavioral health news and developments in the field. So given the significant challenges we face as a county, particularly the behavioral health issues among those who are homeless and reentering the community from incarceration, we are grateful for all that the Adams Board does, along with the Office of Homeless Services and the Office of Reentry, and we urge the county's full support. Thank you.
Jason Joyce.
Jason Joyce, President and CEO of Hitchcock Center for Women. Good afternoon, members of Cuyahoga County Council. I stand before you today as a voice from our community, urging you to maintain the funding for our local Cuyahoga County Adams Board at last year's levels without any reductions. The Adams Board plays a critical role in filling the gaps in our behavioral health system, providing services that Medicaid and Medicare do not cover. Every dollar allocated to them directly influences the health and well-being of our residents, ensuring that those in need have access to critical behavioral health services. In an era where mental health and behavioral health are paramount, Cutting funds would mean depriving our community members of essential services. Please continue the commitment to the well-being of our residents and support the Adams Board fully. Thank you.
Brian Bayless.
Good afternoon, Council President Jones and members of the Cuyahoga County Council. My name is Brian Bayless, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer of Thrive Peer Recovery Services. Thrive is an organization which provides peer recovery support to members of the community with behavioral health disorders, such as mental illness and substance use disorders. Peer supporters are people with lived experience having had a behavioral health disorder and are certified through the state to help others navigate complex systems and provide hope, connection, and support to others trying to find their recovery journey. I come before you today to request that you continue level funding for the County Adams Board. With this funding, we've been referred over 900 individuals needing our services in the Cleveland Clinic and University hospitals in 2022. We've been able to help people utilizing the county's warm line, people who are not quite in crisis but need a little support over 45,000 times in 2022. These services and others supported by the Adams Board funding are vital for our community's health and well-being. I thank you for your time to comment publicly today and urge you to support the continual level funding of the Adams Board.
Lavelle Custard.
Good afternoon, Council President, members of council, county staff, and members of the community. My name is Lavelle Custard, and I serve as the CEO of Murders Taylor Human Services System. Murders Taylor is celebrating 75 years of serving the residents of Cuyahoga County. As you are aware, Murders Taylor provides a comprehensive array of health and human services. This year in 2023, the agency is on track to serve over 10,000 Cuyahoga County residents, of which it projects that 4,000 will receive services related to a behavioral health diagnosis. And we project that 600 will receive services supported by the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County. These 600 Cuyahoga County residents have either no insurance or limited insurance, which does not cover all of their needed behavioral health services. These 600 residents include individuals with very complex treatment needs, people living with severe and persistent mental illness, individuals with co-occurring mental health and substance abuse diagnoses, and individuals involved in the criminal justice system. Without the funding provided by the Adams Board, treatment for these Cuyahoga County residents will stop. Murders Taylor's management and board of directors ask County Council to continue its long-standing investment in behavioral health services through funding the Adams Board, which serves as the convener, organizer, and leader of Cuyahoga County's behavioral health system. Thank you for your time.
Aaron Helms.
Good afternoon, everyone. I urge you to maintain the current funding
Ms.
levels.
Helms, if you could state your name for the record, please.
Erin Helms with the Woodrow Project and Briarmoss Foundation. Good afternoon. I urge you to maintain the current funding levels as the work is so very important. I stand before you as a person with 15 years in long-term recovery because of the services I received. At the beginning of October, I attended a national conference regarding recovery supports. At the meeting, I was so very proud to share how our county has been forward-thinking in the way that we address substance use disorder. To be able to share that every emergency department in the county has the opportunity for people to be able to access treatment directly from the emergency department is just absolutely fantastic. In addition to that, we don't stop there. The County Adams Board has ensured that services are funded for prevention, detoxification, inpatient treatment, recovery housing, and peer support. And this is something that is not seen throughout the country. Whether a person is in need of medication-assisted treatment or peer support or detoxification, they're able to get the help that they need. Additionally, the Adams Board ensures that diversity is also addressed. The staff members at the Adams Board that I would like to take a moment to recognize that have been so very helpful are Ms. Franklin, Mr. Junn, Ms. Tolbert, Ms. Harrison, Ms. Henderson, Mr. Hebel, Ms. Fowl, Ms. Clark, Ms. Lamp, and Mr. Osecki. All of these folks have been absolutely fantastic in helping our organization and so many others be able to do the work that we do. Thank you for your time.
That concludes the public comment portion for today's meeting. And as a record, I would like to state that council members Sweeney, Schron, and Simon are in attendance.
All right, thank you, Andrea. At this time, for our committee of the whole meeting, I will pass the gavel symbolically to Councilman Dale Miller to chair our budget hearing.
Thank you very much, President Jones. And before we start our first department, I'm going to take a moment of personal privilege and just make an announcement that that we're going to have a 1-hour presentation tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. in the county executive offices on the NEOFIX project, which is the drone flight information system. And John Eberhardt, the expert from ATA in Virginia, and Stuart Mendel, the local contact from Baldwin Wallace, will make the presentation. So I would cordially invite any of my colleagues to come for that presentation. We are now going to move on to our first department. Is the director going to make any further overview presentation this morning, Director Merriman? Okay. So then we're going to move directly to Alcohol, Drug Addiction, and Mental Health Services Board of Cuyahoga County, Director Scott Osicki.
Good afternoon, Chairman and all of County Council. It's nice to see you today. I'm Scott Osicki. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County, and I have a few folks with me today that I'd like to introduce you to. One is Dr. Robert Fowler. He is our chair. I have him here with me today. I have Felicia Harrison, our Chief Financial Officer. I have Maggie Tolbert, our Assistant Chief Clinical Officer. I have Mr. Wu Junn, our Chief Operating Officer. I have Danielle Clark, our Director of Finance, and also Linda Lamp, who is my Executive Assistant. So we have the PowerPoint.
So, Director, did you provide printed copies?
Yes, I gave it to the Clerk of Council today.
Okay, fine. I'm
Yes,
sorry. I have it.
You have it? Okay. Why isn't this clicking? The big green button, right? There we go. All right, thank you very much. So on this side here, I just want to let folks know that the Adams Board of Cuyahoga County is established in the Ohio Revised Code 340, and we're responsible for the planning, funding, and monitoring or evaluating of the public mental health and addiction treatment services. And that includes crisis services, prevention, and recovery support for the residents of Cuyahoga County. When we contract for our services, you know, we keep things in mind that we're charged with. So we're charged with considering cost effectiveness and quality of services and supports. We have to consider our continuity of care for our clients, and we also have to be accountable to the public and ensure, you know, that all the funds are effectively utilized. The Adams Board is in the process of developing our 2024 budget, and we recently presented a draft budget to our Board of Directors, and that is at an amount of $90,407,195. So just want to make it clear that the Adams Board is not requesting an increase in levy funding from the county, but we would like it to remain flat as to what it is at $43,463,659, and that's for calendar year 24 and 25. And I want to thank the executive and his office for also recommending that the funding remain flat. In order to pass a balanced budget for '24, we anticipate using over $21 million of our cash balance. We anticipate revenue of $69,394,874. That's from the levy, from federal, state, and other local funding, such as our partnerships with the Corrections Planning Board, Invest in Children, and other miscellaneous funding that we have. We project our expenses to total the $90,407,195. And if you notice, the largest portion of the funding goes to our providers at $72,677,906. And right now we have about 72 to 75 provider agencies that we contract with. So just let's look at our cash balance that we have. So the building and carryover of the cash balance or reserve funding was actually a strategic decision that we made back in calendar year 19. And that's when we implemented a fee-for-service pooled funding in which contract agencies billed for treatment services provided to individuals not receiving Medicaid, rather than receiving a set yearly allocation for treatment services. So this strategic decision, it was made to build funding to be used for new crisis services as we realized that crisis services were becoming more and more a priority with the state as well as the community that we serve. So the Adams Board, we participated in Ohio Mass Crisis Academies, and I was also part of the Crisis Planning Committee. In calendar year 22, we had a cash balance of just over $43 million. In order for a balanced budget in 2023, we're budgeting for use of a portion of that cash balance as well, which is based on our September billing trends is $10,437,102, which should leave us with a cash balance of $32,738,601, our cash balance for 2023. So in order to pass a balanced budget and maintain the services for 2024, we're planning to use over the $21 million of our cash balance, leaving us with an anticipated $11,726,280 going into 2025. So in preparing for our budget, we wanted to ensure that the Adams Board is meeting our statutory responsibilities, and that's maintaining a robust continuum of care. And that includes prevention services. That's for school-based. We have youth programs and activities. We have education. We have awareness campaigns. Also, crisis services. We have our 24/7 hotline, our mobile crisis team for both adults and children. We have a crisis stabilization unit. We fund child crisis beds, and we also provide crisis intervention team training to law enforcement, which we've been doing for over 20 years. Treatment services, those are things like outpatient services for substance abuse disorder and mental health, medication management, detoxification, residential treatment. And then we have the recovery supports, which we have peer support. We fund peer-run organizations. We fund faith-based organizations. We fund a system of sober housing and adult care facilities for mental health. And we also offer employment services as well. So I also want to point out that our budget was developed with an overarching lens of our 3-year diversity, equity, and inclusion plan as well. We were asked to share some challenges that we have. So of course, accidental overdose have increased due to fentanyl-laced street drugs, and we continue to combat those deaths through harm reduction efforts. We offer fentanyl test strips. We offer Narcan. We have vending machines that have Narcan and fentanyl test strips, which is available to the community for free. We have nalox boxes all over the county at corner stores, laundromats, even the Rock Hall has some nalox boxes. Stressors related to the pandemic, as well as the opiate epidemic, have increased the demand for behavioral health treatment, not only here in Cuyahoga County or Ohio, but the entire country. And according to OMAS, there's actually been a 353% change in demand for behavioral health services from 2013 to 2019. And the other challenge we have is suicide. So local data is showing that suicides overall have actually been decreasing in Cuyahoga County since 2019. But national and Ohio trends show an increase with a shift to younger African-American males, which we've also seen here in Cuyahoga County. So not only completed suicides, but attempted suicides. And we have used the It's Better With You campaigns and other means to reach out to the African American communities. We've also reached out to them as well of letting them know that fentanyl is involved in street drugs as well. A big thing facing the Adams Board of the Behavioral Health System is the behavioral health workforce shortage. So the Adams Board is very involved with steps to address the workforce shortage. Most recently, we become a partner with the Ohio Means Jobs County and City Mental Health Workforce Development Sprint Task Force. We had 2020 workforce, we had a consultant and added a strategic planning goal. In 21 and 22, the Adams Board had a workforce task force made up of providers. We reviewed statewide information that has come out. We actually developed a video series that shared in different levels of schools to increase the pipeline for increasing talent for in the future to be interested in the behavioral health field. We also added DEI recruitment strategies. That was part of our DEI plan. We also issued a workforce shortage survey as well. So we're looking for the results for that to come back. And then we're also partners with OMAS, the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, with their statewide workforce initiatives, which are fellowship programs, Workforce Welcome Back campaign, and Workforce Technical Assistance Center. So we're working with OMAS as well. Some initiatives that we're looking forward to for 24 and 25, they all fall under crisis services. So one thing that we're excited about is a new short-term residential facility. It's going to be at Signature Health's Orca House, and that's actually going to be a 16-bed facility at Orca House, which is located on East 30th and Prospect. And like I said, Signature Health will be operating that for us. And that's for when clients are discharged from an inpatient psychiatric hospital, but they can't yet go back home. So they're stabilized, but they still can't yet, go back home to live their life. So we call that a step-down center. Also, clients who need to be stabilized but don't require hospitalization, so that's a step up. So you don't need to spend time in the hospital, but you need time to be reacclimated to your medications, receive counseling, things like that. So our clients, they'll be able to stay there 30, 60, or even 90 days until they are fully stabilized to go back home. And we anticipate receiving $1 million in one-time capital and startup funds from OMAS in ARPA funds. Also, our next thing is expansion of behavioral health crisis or the diversion center. So in this area, right now we're along with any great plan or in a project of this magnitude, we hit a few bumps in the road. So we're waiting for, we originally wanted to have the facility and expansion of where we have it at St. Vincent's right now, but St. Vincent's is kind of doing analysis and they may not be the best location in that part of the building. And we're waiting till the end of the month to hear back of some other locations on the St. Vincent campus. And we are partnering with Metro Health to provide the services there at the crisis center, and then also talking with the county about having the diversion services there as well. So it'll be a crisis intake and receiving center, so it's sort of the front door to the behavioral health community, where somebody could just walk in there if they're experiencing a crisis, their loved one's experiencing a crisis, or they just want to get in touch with behavioral health services, and it's called a living room model. And that's where it's a very nice, comfortable setting. There's not bed there, there's chairs there, and a person with lived experience, a peer supporter, and a behavioral health specialist would be able to talk to the individual to see what sort of issues they're having, and then also act as a triage as to where they should go for their next services they need. Some people may only spend a matter of hours there, and then some will move on to different parts. The other part is the psychiatric emergency services, which is 23-hour observation, which is a locked facility. And that is currently like is what's happening right now with our psychiatric emergency services at St. Vincent's. And the last piece is a 16-bed crisis stabilization unit, where like if an individual doesn't need to go to the step up, step down facility, but they still need to perhaps have medication management, receive a few more services, and that's just a short term as well to stay there. So right now, the OMAS originally told us that we were receiving $6.8 million in capital and startup funds and ARPA dollars for this project, but they're finalizing details on that as well. So there was some, like I said, some bumps in the road is also with the Ohio Department of Mental Health and Addiction Services, but we're confident that we will be receiving, funding for this project. And the third thing is care response teams. And we've heard from the community they wanted to have this, and there's been several different community meetings on this. And basically, a care response team, it's not a co-response team. So, co-response is when a behavioral specialist goes out with a police officer. This is an unarmed behavioral health professional and a peer or individual with personal or lived experience. They go out on the call instead, and they respond to the behavioral health crisis instead of police. So right now, we're working with the city of Cleveland. It's going to be a pilot that we'll be launching probably in mid of '24. They are working with us on identifying areas that this pilot would be for. And we know there's a lot of components that go with that. We are working with the 988 teams, with the city of Cleveland to see if they, 911 teams to see when they come in to be receiving training on when it would be a co-responder call or a care responder call. And then also 988 is where we would be directing the community to call. And 988 is a crisis, hotline number that we're fortunate to have Frontline answer that for us. That's our regular 623-688 number, 24-hour service that we have. But so we're lucky. But so we know there's a lot of education involved in this. And that is all I had for you today, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Director. And are there questions for the Director, Ms. Conwell?
Thank you. To the chair, to Mr. Osiki, in the amended budget in 2022, November 2022, you made a request of $1 million of ARPA funds to increase the Adams Board employees and increase in their rate of pay. And I believe you stated because it was hard to hire at that time or keep employees. You were denied by the county because we had pretty much the same issues going on at that time. And also you stated at that hearing that your reserve was currently at $50 million at that time. I think you stated today your reserve is at $40 million. I could be wrong, but I don't remember at that hearing last year for the amended budget that you brought this idea up with the administration or us in regards to the outlook for a new crisis behavioral center. If you had, maybe the outlook would have been different with the ARPA funds. So my, I guess, question, what discussions have you had going forward, we're in the present, have you had with the administration regarding how a coordination of the diversion center and behavioral crisis center could work together?
Yes, the chair to Ms. Conwell. First of all, the $1 million was not for the workforce at the Adams Board. It was for the behavioral health workforce, not for staff of the Adams Board. It was for staff of our agencies. So I just wanted to clear that up. So yes, we have been in dialogue with the county executive staff on how the crisis center and the diversion center could work together. So there's been several different things that we've been talking about, but nothing has been finalized yet. But actually after this meeting, I'll be talking to some representatives over at the executive's office. So part of those discussions were that the Adams Board would continue with the current diversion center for the year while we work together as partners with the county to see how the diversion services could be combined into the crisis center.
In terms of the agencies, when you last met with me and the team, you stated that you have 71 agencies that are funded by the Adams Board.
Yes.
And that you are in the process of evaluating duplicity, I don't know if I could say that word right, and things of that nature. I think the board chair was in that meeting.
Yeah.
Where are we at? Where is your agency at currently with that? Because we all know the need is out for drug and mental health. My thing is, if you have $40 million in reserves, the agencies are all being kept at a flat fund rate. they're not being increased. So can you explain where you are in that process?
Yes, to the chair, to Councilwoman Conwell. So some of our providers, the 70-some providers for calendar year '24, some will actually receive increases, while some will receive decreases. We looked at the utilization of the funding that they were using for '22 and '23, as well as how many folks they were serving. Right, so there's some areas like crisis that we're going to be increasing funds to, and there's a list of other ones, and there's some we're decreasing. One agency lost their licensure, so they'll no longer be funded, and the others are, and all of our providers have been notified of that. Our board decided that what we wanted to do this year was to continue funding going forward for calendar year '24. But then in calendar year '24, we'll be really boosting our metrics, and we'll be looking at the tools that our providers are using to measure success. So when we're using that during '24, then we'll also look at how we'll be funding providers in calendar year '25 and beyond.
Okay. I don't know if I asked you in that meeting. I asked, could you provide the 71 organizations, and you did.
Yes.
Now that you've gotten to who's going to be decreased and increased, could you provide that with our council staff as well?
Yes,
So
we
can
could certainly
take
do that, and we're presenting that to our board. We presented it last week. We're presenting a variation of it again on Wednesday, and then there's also 2 other meetings in November until our board votes on the final budget.
Yeah,
But yes, we could send it over to you.
I also know in that meeting, you kind of explained how, as moving forward for this new possible initiative, and how important it was, from your point of view, that you would need the subsidy to continue at the rate that it is. I don't know if I agree. So I just want us to have more conversations in terms of with being involved. We can't do things in silos. So I always believe in meeting with all the parties and not just having a meeting with you and you having a meeting with the administration. So if I could be included in those further meetings going forward, just so we could make sure that we're on the same page. We, all of the council up here understands that the diversion center is not working as effectively as we wanted it to. But if this is going to be a new initiative that is tried to be merged together or whatever, I think council needs to, have some input in that and making sure that everything is aligned. We also are facing some issues here on our side. So we want to make sure that if this initiative is something that's not going to be done in 2 years or even started in 2 years, that's 2 years. We're working on this 2-year budget now, and we need to utilize the dollars that the taxpayers has voted on effectively. I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. President Jones.
Good morning, Scott.
Good morning.
All right. So I echo some of what Councilwoman Conwell has already said, but I've really been in these last few months trying to wrap my mind around the entire Adams Board, and I'll just kind of give you my thinking. This is all just rough numbers. You've already said there are like 70 vendors, but then we also see you have maybe $70 million, and just using a rough thumb approximation, it's like maybe $1 million a vendor. Maybe some get less, maybe some get more. But the work that you're trying to accomplish in the community is rooted in those vendors and the work that they do. I've started to try to think about the Adams Board and how you are being effective and how you diligently work to improve your effectiveness and efficiency in that work. And I started thinking, well, what are the challenges in the community that you're trying to address? And do those 70 vendors address that? And how do you change the mix? Is there a time that comes where you say some of these vendors, I know they're doing good work, we need to strategize and focus and maybe not give you the contract this year or this 2 years and someone else gets it? I want to understand your organization, how fluid you are in your ability to, are there some vendors who have gotten the contract almost out of a legacy and And how much do you would struggle, if you struggle, with changing vendors and being flexible for the needs of the community? Do you have the right 70 mix now, or do you change it? And because I get calls from vendors who say, I lost my contract. I say, okay, what can I do? I trust the Adams Board to assess and determine who should get the contract and who shouldn't. But from a big picture, I'd like to understand how you think about that. And I'll stop there and then follow up with other questions. But
Okay, so to the chair, to Council President Jones. So we have various mechanisms for measuring our agencies, right? We have a department that, first of all, we have a contract compliance department. So they go through and they look at the different areas of the contracts to make sure that our providers are meeting the portions of the contract. Then we also have a programs department, and our programs department either receive monthly or quarterly reports from our providers based on what the contract says, right? And based what the program is, depending on the length of it. And each one, we have program staff that go through those and they look, and if they see something that's out of the ordinary or something's not being met, we do, what's the word I'm looking for? We help the agencies with that to try to meet the goals that they have, right? Or to say, hey, look, this doesn't look right and we need to increase this service, or we need to increase this, or we need more information. So just want to, rest assured that the Adams Board throughout the entire year has constant contact with each one of our providers as we go through. Then also that we want to firm up our metrics that we have with our agencies as well, right? So in order for, instead of just receiving a number of served or how much money they spent, we want to use national measurements. And there's different tools that our department, our agency has been looking at to instill in the contracts for 24 to make sure. And then also you said about if people contact you about losing their contract, it was like very, very few have done that, but there's always been technical assistance provided first of working with a provider to see if they can maintain their services with us. So in 2024, we'll be looking at more of those metrics of success, right? Right now, we could deem that there is success, right? People may say, well, the fentanyl overdose deaths, they're increasing, right? But we provide the education, we provide the tools for harm reduction so people could be alive to seek the services they have. So if we could say if we were not providing those services or those campaigns, there could possibly be more deaths by fentanyl or by suicide as well. So your other question about legacy agencies, there have been agencies that have been around for as long as I've been with the board, for 29 years, or morphed with a different kind of agency or merged together with others. So, as we move forward, we're looking for economics of scale or whatever, right? So with part of the workforce, the staff of behavioral health workforce don't make a great deal of money, right? So in order to provide a living wage to our providers, we'll be looking at which providers do the best services and actually pay them what they need to maintain a full staff. Because right now, none of them have a full staff right now.
So next question is, when you strategize what you want to accomplish or what you want to impact in the community, do you look at, maybe say as your name implies, are you looking to battle those struggling with alcohol or struggling with drugs or mental health? Those are the things, or can you distill it even deeper than that? You gave us a list of suicide and things like that. Is there a strategy that or a target goal for your 70 vendors? And what are those issues in the community that you're targeting?
Yes. So, right, fentanyl overdose, that's our number one challenge we're targeting. Okay. Suicide is our other one, and workforce development, because without the workforce, we can't provide the services. Our providers can't provide as many services as they could. Okay. in 2024, we're also launching a needs assessment, and a needs assessment is something we do every 3 to 5 years. And will be in the third year. We are doing it now because we know that things continue to change. You know, after the pandemic, more increased awareness for behavioral health needs. So we're going to do a needs assessment. And when that needs assessment comes back, then we could change our focus, other things that in the community that aren't being met. And then at that time, we could issue RFPs for services that providers or new providers would be able to respond
Well,
to
that's
get
coming
that
up.
need. Yes, and
The
if we
needs
see that.
assessment's coming up soon.
Yes, the needs assessment. It will be launching, I think in January, it'll be launching, and by mid-24, we should have the final document back from our vendor that we used.
Okay, so now let me ask my budget question. The 70, again, approximately $70 million. You said in your presentation, for this year, you're looking to spend an additional $10 million. Did I read that correctly? Out of your reserves?
Yes, out of the cash balance to maintain the services that we currently have.
Okay, so we certainly have had this conversation in the past. You've got a significant reserve, and obviously there's an infinite amount of need out there, only so much in finite amount of resources.
Yes.
But again, have these tens of millions of dollars, and this additional 10 million, is this to cover budget shortfalls, or did you strategically choose to use this $10 million for needs in the community?
Yes, as.
Which one? You say yes, but which one was it?
Yeah.
Not yes,
And
but
if I could call Felicia Harrison up, if
Sure.
you mind, Mr. Chair, our Chief Financial Officer, and she could kind of help me out with that.
Use your lifeline. It's all
Yes,
right.
exactly.
All right.
Good afternoon, Felicia Harrison. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at the Adams Board. The money that we're planning to use from our cash balance is a strategic move. We built up the cash balance when we made changes to fee-for-service payments, the way we were paying our provider agencies to prepare for this time. So we knew that overall our resources were not going to be increasing, so we knew that we were going to have to change the way that we were paying our providers to prepare to have funding available to meet emergencies, to meet current trends within our community. So it was a strategic move to build up the cash balance. I also want to add part of that building up the cash balance. So once the pandemic hit, our provider agencies were not able to bill the way they had been billing because they could not do face-to-face services. So they were doing like phone services and telehealth and things like that. So they weren't able to utilize as much as we thought that they would be using, like in 2020 and 2021. We're just now getting back to the point where they're billing more than what they had been in the past. So it's like we're back to somewhat normal now, and the billings have increased over the last year to two. But in 2020 and 2021, their billings were down, and that was another reason why our cash balance increased significantly at that time.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we now have Councilman Sweeney, followed by Tuma.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott, nice seeing you. Madam Chief Financial Officer, nice seeing you. Just some questions that came to mind as we're having this discussions. Do you have a strong board?
Yes, and our, to the chair, to Councilman Sweeney, right now we have 15 members. We have 14 now. Someone is being appointed in November. Then the county executive is also bringing forth 2 additional folks, so that will bring us up to 17.
That sounds
Then we-
wonderful.
Yeah, out of our 18.
How many members you have, but are they strong?
Yes, yes. I
They
believe
give you
we are.
direction.
Oh, yes, definitely they do.
And then once you
like I said,
get their
our board chair is
direction,
here.
you execute through the chair the responsibilities running this board. But I consider it a corporation, kind of.
Yes, yes. That's
And I
that's
just
what
see
I think about it.
efficiencies, how you're doing your business.
Okay.
And when you're talking about the 70 providers, some corporations or boards say, okay, everybody got cut equal, everybody got the same amount equal. But listening to you, you're doing the metrics, you're assessing them, you're giving some more money because they're producing more. You're taking some lower because they need to do a little bit more.
Yes.
And even you're taking some after a significant amount of technical assistants, you're not renewing them. And you should be applauded for that. And that's how these monies should be spent. And just on the 10 million that's coming over, does that, through your chair, does that hurt your bond rating? Because the rainy day fund is important, and then you got the losing 20% is significant, and I don't want you to spend money to put you in a different position in regards to the bond rating.
Through the chair, to Councilman Sweeney, we don't have a separate bond rating from the county, so no, it doesn't affect our bond rating because we're part of your bond rating.
Yeah.
So, no.
But just your cash balance, it's better
will-
to have 50 than 40.
It
Or no?
will affect our cash balance. And actually, at the point where we were to those levels, that was higher than what we had anticipated. But then again, it was because our agencies weren't able to bill and they weren't billing us as much as we had anticipated.
Got it.
So our optimal cash balance would not be that high.
Oh, okay. I'm just learning here myself, and the whole bond question, I apologize for not being up to speed on that. And with the legacy carriers, it doesn't really matter if you're a legacy. It's just all on raw data that you assign these dollars.
Through the chair to Councilman Sweeney, some of our providers are really like specialized providers. So some of our providers are crisis providers, and that's part of the reason why they would be what you would call a legacy provider. If what they do and what they do well is crisis, we'll continue to fund them to do crisis. So that's how some of our agencies have been able to be funded for 20-plus years for the same sort of services.
And two more brief ones, Mr. Chairman. Just on the high end of the 70, what would be the dollar amount? And on the low end, what would be the dollar amount?
A few of our higher agencies, sorry, through the chair to Councilman Sweeney, a few of our higher agencies, total annual contracts are $5 million or so. The lower end of some of our agencies could be $25,000.
Got it. So I just wanted to get it in perspective. And the last thing, when I had the privilege of coming over to visit, you talked about the initiatives, right? And I was like, you're asking for the same, but you're doing more. But I learned today through the chair, you're doing more because of the 10 million? Or you're doing more just because you're going to make it work? How would you describe that? Because this new $10 million is for, you didn't brief me on that when I came over to visit.
Through the chair to Councilman Sweeney, we're using part of our cash balance to meet our budget. So we're doing more by utilizing our available resources.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out it'd be incredible if you, same amount of money with new initiatives and doing more with the same amount. But you're adding the 10, so I'm just trying to grasp that.
Through the chair, the 10 is our cash balance that we're carrying over. So we're utilizing it to, basically we're using what's in our savings account to help us to meet our bills.
And part of the bill is this new initiative.
Yes.
Yeah, I got it now. So thank you, keep up the good work, and Mr. Chairman, I relinquish the floor.
Thank you. And Councilman Tuma is next, followed by Councilwoman Turner.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through the chair, you had mentioned doing assessments of the 71 vendors, and using metrics and such, which I applaud. One of my, I don't use the word concern, but you mentioned using some national standards. I just would caution, I guess that's the best word, caution that, we have local issues, particularly with opioid crisis in this area. And so I just want to make sure that while we might use some national standards to gauge some items, just be cautionary that, we do have the overdose deaths and the opioid crisis in this area that's probably higher than some regions of the country. And so I would just, caution to that. And then the second thing is, who handles the metrics? Who's responsible for assessing the different vendors?
Yes. So, Mr. Chair, to Councilman Tuma, when I mentioned the national standards, I meant national tools.
Okay.
So there are measurement
That's
tools
different.
to
Yep.
measure success of behavioral health. So we're not necessarily looking at
Okay,
the
understood.
numbers
I
of
appreciate
deaths.
that clarification.
Okay, to clear that up. And I forgot the second
The,
one.
the second one I asked, who's
who?
responsible for assessing the
Yes,
various
yes,
vendors?
Yes, so we have our program staff right now that are reviewing, like I said, on a monthly or bi-monthly basis. We also have our compliance. So Mr. Woo Jun, our Chief Operating Officer, oversees our contract compliance. So he has a team of 3 staff members that do that. We also have Claire Rosser, who is our, it's a long title, I can't remember, Chief Strategic Officer, and also with Metrics, and she has taken over that responsibility. We had another individual who was responsible for that. He resigned, he moved on to something else. So that's what the contract compliance and our, I'm sorry, the word went out, what? The metrics, looking at the metrics, it's split between Mr. Jun and Ms. Rosser.
Okay, so there is oversight, regular oversight of these vendors. And then as far as payment to the vendors, is that usually done in a lump sum payment at one time, or is it done over months, or does it depend on the vendor and the need?
Through the chair to Councilman Tuma, it really depends from vendor to vendor. We require that our vendors submit monthly invoices for those things that are paid on a reimbursement basis. So really, we move to a reimbursement basis as opposed to a set allocation. So you're reimbursed either based on invoices that you submit, or if it's fee for service, you have to submit through our billing system, which is called GOSH, which stands for Great Office Solution Helper. You would submit your billing, yes, GOSH, I know. You submit your billing through GOSH for treatment services. So you're billed based on how many actual units of service you provide, and it depends on how often the provider actually submits their bill. We can take bills every day, but most of our providers submit through GOSH on a weekly basis.
Right. Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And we have Councilwoman Turner, followed by Councilwoman Conwell.
Okay, thank you. Hi, good afternoon. I know in our last meeting, we talked a little bit about the crisis care. Can you tell me, are any new expenditures, are these new expenditures included in the 24 budget?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Turner, yes, these new expenses for the new initiatives are already included in our 24 budget.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Conwell.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mr. Osiki, when was the last increase overall for the providers that was given from your agency?
Through the councilman to Councilwoman Conwell, it's really, it depends on each provider. So we did not do an across-the-board increase to all of our agencies. Some of our agencies did receive increases based on demonstrated need, and some of our agencies were reduced based on actual utilization. If we had entered into a contract with the provider agency and they were underperforming, then they might have received a decrease.
And what about the time before, not current budget times, but maybe in the last fiscal budget? I'm assuming that you guys kind of base your budget after us, after our subsidy, or how does that go?
So through the chair to Councilwoman Miller, so when we set our annual budget, we look at what we anticipate receiving from the county, what we anticipate receiving in federal, state, and other local funds. So we look at all of that strategically in order to set our next year's budget.
And when is your annual budget usually?
We have our budget on a calendar year, so we're looking at our calendar year 24 budget now.
Okay. Do you start have the meetings? When do you have the meeting?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Miller, we started looking at our 24 budget numbers mid-July.
So July to December is kind of when you're...
July through, and then it's approved in our November board meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
And then my other question, how are you, through the chair to President Osiki, how are you working with the medical examiners, and in what capacity in terms of drugs?
Yes, to the chair, to Councilwoman Conwell. Yes, we work with the medical examiner. There are certain committees, the death review. I know that Maggie Tolbert is here and her staff sits on that. It's the fatality death review, as well as we receive information from them of where most of the fentanyl deaths were, and then we target our communication efforts to those areas as well. And we receive the reports from the medical examiner and work with them to make some of our decisions on our communication efforts, education efforts.
How often do they give you those reports? Quarterly or?
Yeah, I think they try to get them out monthly, but it's not necessarily a monthly cycle, or when they give it to us, it still says there's still so many pending deaths that have to be determined.
Okay, from your perspective, for the committee of the death review, have they noticed that the numbers have increased or decreased when we talk about fentanyl, and is that in a specific, like, I guess, area?
So Chair Miller to Councilwoman Conwell, yes, so they are seeing that fentanyl is the major cause of the deaths, but the people aren't seeking out fentanyl. It is in other street drugs. It could be, in methamphetamine. It could be mixed into cocaine, so people don't know that they will actually be taking fentanyl. And there has been an increase in fentanyl deaths in the African-American community.
Thank you.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, to Councilman, that's why we offer the harm reduction efforts and the education and the campaigns that we do targeting certain audiences.
How are you targeting, looking to see if some of your initiatives are working in those specific areas?
Well, with any type of a prevention campaign, we could only assume that there would be more deaths if we were not doing the campaign, and there would be more deaths without having Narcan and fentanyl test strips available. We've had people come back and tell us that, or tell our provider agencies that, yes, they saved someone's life by Narcan or someone used the fentanyl test strips, but there's no definite number of how we could say. We could only, an educated guess, and an educated thing of any prevention campaign is that an individual, there may be more deaths. And some of our campaigns have our hotline number on it, or 988, and we do have those numbers that when we advertise the number, the calls go up during that time, for whether it's an individual seeking treatment or a family member seeking information about it.
And any funding toward, well, I guess that's your campaign, that's like a preventive tool, correct?
Yes, preventive, yes, education.
I believe in prevention. Thank
you.
Councilman Gallagher.
I was interested when you were talking about the crisis center and diversion center. What's the difference?
Yes, so the difference between a crisis center and a diversion center. So a crisis center is anybody who is experiencing a behavioral health crisis, not involved in any sort of police activity at all, or if a person just needs to have mental health services, they could take an individual there, they could go an individual themselves. They don't have to call a number at all. And when they go there, they're assessed as to what's the next step, triage to where they need to go for their service. So originally when the diversion center started, right, it was diversion from jail, pre-arrest. So it was for police officers, if they came across an individual who was involved in a low-level nonviolent offense, they would call our hotline number to have a screening with that person to see if they were eligible to go to the diversion center. So it was pre-arrest. So we started out with that, and our crisis intervention team training tells all about the diversion center. And also part of crisis intervention team training is for the police officers to resolve a situation right there that a person wouldn't have to be arrested. So, the Adams Board, we fought to get the diversion center started. We really did. So then when people were saying that there weren't enough police officers taking people there, we had a survey with police officers, and we used to meet with them on a monthly basis with the police chiefs and others. And they said they're not coming across a lot of individuals that fit that need. They weren't involved in a low-level nonviolent or any sort of an offense, but they knew people who could benefit from the services. So they would offer to take the individuals there. And remember, the diversion center is all voluntary, as well as the crisis center is as well. So then we wanted to make sure that the diversion center was being used. So we worked together with the county executive and some advocates to say, well, individuals who aren't involved with the police at all, no police involvement at all, that they're able to take themselves there as well, or they'll be able to refer a friend or family. So we did that as well. But they still have to call the 623-688 number to be screened in.
Yeah, I think you got put in a bad spot right off the start, because it started as a diversion center and basically morphed into a crisis center because the beds were just sitting there. And I suspect until we get further down the line that we shouldn't probably even call it a diversion center because it's just not doing that, as you know, to alleviate at least a few beds down at the jail. It's just not doing that. And unfortunately, I kind of think some of us saw that, but we went forward with it. So what I would suggest, I'm not telling you what to do, but I wouldn't bake the cake on the diversion center until something happens with the jail, because that's going to be a key to the diversion center to make it a true diversion center, because it isn't now. It just is not. And I don't want to say it's a failure. I think it was a failure of planning. I think we went a little too quick. And I've always said, and I'll continue to say it, till we get 24/7 booking, none of it really works, at least on the diversion side. So I'm sorry you were put in that position and probably remain in that position for at least a minimum of 3-4 more years. And we got to do what we got to do. But my ears perk up when I hear diversion, because it really isn't. And it's more of a crisis center, which is fine, which is fine. But, our goal is to alleviate the jail bed capacity. And I'm certain we'll get there when we get our act together, but the act is not together yet. So, and I know this probably dings your bottom line. I'm sure you're getting, calls to maintain your position at the diversion center, which I think is highly unfair to you. But I'm sure if we can work together, we can get through this and then maybe get a true diversion center that works for everybody. So I apologize to you for having to deal with this tug of war, but the reality is that we're really just not ready, but we will be. I'm pretty sure we will be down the road. Thank you.
To the chair, thank you, Councilman Gallagher. And right, we don't consider the diversion center a failure either, right? Because it was diverting from, future incidents and things, but a couple thousand people have gone through there within the time. But thank you. I understand what you're saying.
So, Director, I have a couple questions, and if you could revert back to the slide on the Adams Board cash balance.
Phone. I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. We would like a
Cash balance. Yeah, that's the slide Councilman wants.
Okay, you passed it. There you go. Thank you. So, the $32,738,601 estimate for year-end 2023. I know that that one or more of the county's expected subsidy payments haven't been paid yet. And my question is whether that 32 million number includes receipt of that subsidy payment and nets that out.
Hi, Councilman Miller. Yes, that includes us receiving our second half payment. We were indicated that we would receive that in November, the second payment.
Okay, thank you. My second question is what your budget looks like. I know it hasn't been formally prepared yet, but what do you anticipate for 2025? Because if you did the same thing that you're proposing for 2024, where you use $21 million in reserves, that would put you $10 million in the hole. So my question is how are you planning to deal with that?
Councilman Miller, we will take a look at our needs assessment to determine if we need to take a closer look at some of the things that we're funding. We do realize that we will have to change our funding strategy for 25. Some agencies, if our needs assessment indicates that we don't need as much and I'm just throwing out something, it hasn't been indicated yet. If something comes back and says we don't need as many prevention services out there, not that it would, then we would take a look at the prevention programs that we are funding today to determine which of those programs we would have to, in essence, eliminate. So we know that we'll have to make a lot of changes and a lot of hard decisions for '25.
Sure. If I may add too, that we'll be really, revamping those metrics that we're using as well with our new tools, and like Councilman Tuma was talking about. So we'll be able to use those metrics also for making decisions for '25.
Do you have any possibility of any significant savings by reducing the number of providers and reducing the costs of processing and monitoring the large number of vendors that you currently have?
Councilman Miller, we do not anticipate that there would be huge savings by any consolidation. There may be some economies of scale, some things that we can increase efficiencies with, but we still, the need for services would remain the same, if not increase. So we don't believe that there would be huge savings by consolidation of agencies.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm not seeing any further questions, so I appreciate very much your coming in. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair, as well as County Council. Thank you.
Okay, so now we are going to move on to the first of the Health and Human Services Direct County Department's Office of Homeless Services, Director Surak. And I would announce that after Homeless Services, we are going to have about a 10-minute break so that everybody can plan for that. Director.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Melissa Surak, the Director of the Office of Homeless Services. Cuyahoga County established the Office of Homeless Services in partnership with the City of Cleveland in 1993. The Office of Homeless Services role is twofold, including both Cuyahoga County and Continuum of Care responsibilities. On behalf of Cuyahoga County, OHS is responsible for administering county and HUD funding. OHS procures levy, Emergency Solutions Grant, ARPA, and other HUD resources and designated local funding. On behalf of the Continuum of Care, the Cuyahoga County Office of Homeless Services is the designated lead agency for the Homeless Continuum of Care and the Homeless Management Information System. As the COC lead agency, OHS is responsible for the coordination, convening, and planning for the homeless system. As the HMIS lead, we are responsible for providing the HMIS system administrator for the system, which serves as the technical point of contact for training, support, and reporting. As the COC lead, we are also responsible for conducting an annual analysis of all funding resources coming into our homeless crisis response. From that analysis, we make strategic recommendations to continue our service delivery within the continuum. OHS serves as the backbone of the COC, which includes over 40 agencies and over 200 programs. We are a small but dynamic and amazing team of 4 that is responsible for the procurement, contracting, monitoring, and service delivery of over $76 million in other federal resources. The Office of Homeless Services leverages public resources to meet the needs of our homeless crisis response system. When you review the $76 million, you'll note that over 51% of funding is awarded through the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Over 26% is awarded through ARPA. Although ARPA is one-time funding, it does require implementation and monitoring. The OHS budget includes levy funds that support critical needs within our homeless service provision. HHS levy funds provide a basic safety net for our homeless community. There are 3 priority areas of the continuum that are supported by levy funding, including emergency shelter, overflow shelter for single adults, families, and young adults, and supportive services. The levy funds are leveraged with other federal, state, and private foundation funds to meet the community needs. Dollars to provide rental assistance to help households leave shelter quickly are awarded through HUD, Continuum of Care competitive grant process. These funds are used primarily on housing projects. The remaining resources you'll see here are obtained through the Cuyahoga County, City of Cleveland, and State Emergency Solutions Grant. The 2024-2025 biennial budget does not include any reductions or elimination of existing programs, initiatives, or services. The overall OHS budget was reduced with the loss of CARES funding, which significantly supplemented the levy budget for service provision within the continuum. All HHS levy-funded contracts are service-based and leveraged against other resources to support the homeless crisis response system, and revenues reflected solely as HHS levy, which translates directly into contracts and professional services. The OHS 2024-25 biennial budget includes increased levels of expenditures, which include the following. 1 FTE. The current budget assumes a staffing level of 7 FTEs, one of which will be a new OHS staff member. 2100 Lakeside Men's Shelter. For the last several years, CARES dollars aided our system in addressing community need, increasing costs of services and operations. With those funds now exhausted, the additional financial support will ensure continuity and consistency of shelter services. Family Overflow Shelter. In January 2023, the Homeless Continuum of Care started experiencing an influx of families entering our homeless system. With family shelters and Haven Homes family overflow at capacity, additional funds are necessary to create alternative options for families. Lastly, shelter for medically fragile. Additional resources in the biennial budget will further support medical respite care for persons experiencing homelessness in our community. As we look ahead, I'd like to note 2024 and 25 areas of concerns or challenges, as you requested. In March of 2023, the OHS, with the Continuum of Care, released the Cuyahoga County Strategic Action Plan, Advancing Pathways to Housing Through Equity. Goal 5 of the plan identifies the need to build system capacity. As the COC lead agency, for the COC, OHS manages complex processes with very limited staffing. Preventing and ending homelessness in Cuyahoga County requires human as well as financial resources. The county is at a pivotal moment where investing in OHS couldn't be more crucial. Prioritizing existing and new funding to build capacity at OHS will be necessary to implement the strategic action plan. Increased service costs overall for the continuum. Similar to my county colleagues, service providers are continuing to be challenged with increased costs in service provision and operations. Norma Hare Women's Shelter and 2100 Lakeside Men's Shelter. As many of you are familiar, we are in the midst of a large transformation for Norma Hare Women's Center, 2020 Lakeside Men's Shelter, as well as 2100 Men's Shelter. We are working diligently with our providers to estimate additional operational costs that will be needed and possibly put before you going into 2024-25 in order to maintain those services at a quality level. Rapid rehousing. Cuyahoga County continues to experience an affordable housing crisis like never before. We expanded our rapid rehousing program assistance to 12 months during COVID. This assisted with ensuring individuals and families were able to remain sheltered. It increased landlord engagement and provided residents with additional time to attain earned, sustainable income. As previously stated, CARES resources have been exhausted and additional rapid rehousing resources are necessary to maintain the process of moving an individual or family into housing. Improvements to the coordinated entry access system. We're extremely excited about this initiative. OHS is initiating a redesign of our coordinated entry system. OHS received a HUD CE expansion grant and will be piloting additional housing navigators as well as additional phone support to meet the increasing volume of calls. OHS is also engaging a consultant to facilitate the whole redesign process to ensure that the program continues to meet the evolving needs of our community. And seasonal shelter. OHS, in partnership with the Continuum, will be finalizing the unsheltered strategic plan in November of 2023. And although this plan seeks to end unsheltered homelessness, it does not address the immediate need for alternative shelter capacity. Historically, monetary investments through Cuyahoga OHS were strategically utilized and leveraged against other federal, state, and local resources to support the primary functions of our system, which include coordinated entry for homeless persons, emergency shelter overflow, and housing projects. We do look forward to addressing the additional unsheltered needs, working with our partners at the City of Cleveland. I stand before you today with a formal strategic action plan that comprehensively states the Continuum's vision of how we will continue to elevate our service in the community and work to end homelessness. With additional investment, OHS will continue leading the Continuum in the overarching goal of moving households from a housing crisis to permanent housing as quickly as possible. It is my intention to strengthen our collaboration with colleagues from Cuyahoga County Department of Housing and Development, City of Cleveland Community Development, and local philanthropy to not only leverage resources, but to strategically align those resources effectively and efficiently to meet the needs of our homeless community. Lastly, I would say that I am extremely grateful for the strong and resilient homeless continuum of care that serves our community, and even more grateful for the brilliant and strongly committed staff that work alongside me each and every day. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and I'll open it now to questions. Ms. Conwell.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Sirak. So just wanted to be clear on the one point that you covered. We've been trying to discuss and at least get some kind of guesstimation on the renovations for Lakeside Men's Shelter as well as the Women's Shelter. So even though you stated what you did, are we going to still try to have maybe a guesstimation for Councilman Miller as he looks forward, towards the overall budget? So we can just have some numbers. They don't have to be like solid, I guess.
Absolutely. And through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, it has been a challenge as we're in the midst of construction and just trying to get that off the ground. But yes, I do have estimates for 2020 Lakeside, as well as the facility expenditures for the new Norma Hare building. I'm still working on the Norma Hare operational aspect from the YWCA. So I anticipate having those finalized relatively soon for an estimate.
And you'll include Councilman Miller?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other questions? Council President Jones.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize for not being able to hear your full presentation, although I'm going through your presentation here. My one question, are there any critical services in your department that have not been covered that you feel you really need?
Through the chair to Council President Jones, there are many areas that if we had additional staffing, I would feel we'd more effectively be able to do. One of which is monitoring of the $76 million that comes through our department that we're responsible for. We take our job extremely seriously. This year we did conduct the monitoring, but it took 3 of my staff being offline for the month of April to monitor. And overall, throughout the last 30 years, the Office of Homeless Services, the Continuum has expanded, but our office has not. So in order to take it to the next level and be as intricately involved and lift the strategic action plan off the ground, we would need additional capacity. We need it direly.
And you consider that critical?
Absolutely, if we're going to continue to lead.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So, Director, I have a couple comments and a couple of questions. I think you're facing 2 expanded challenges going forward that you haven't mentioned. And number one is that the cost of housing has gone up precipitously, both here and throughout the country in the last 2 or 3 years. And this is just going to make it harder for more people to find housing and create more homelessness and make it harder to address the homelessness once people come in because of the lack of availability. The second thing is that success itself causes problems. I know we hear complaints and concerns on a regular basis, and I don't take those lightly. But this is not an easy area to navigate in, and from everything I hear, we have one of the better homeless response systems in the United States, and that's just going to attract people from elsewhere in the country to our region. And whenever you have more numbers that you have to deal with, it just makes things more difficult. So I think you're facing those challenges. 2 items. You mentioned the $20 million in ARPA money in the 2023 budget. When will those funds be exhausted, and what will the impact of that be?
To the chair, Councilman Miller, that's a great question, and it depends on the project. I will say that the, OHS utilized that $20 million as direct investments into our strategic action plan. So, for instance, 11 million of those dollars alone will be are awarded to both the transformation of 2020 Lakeside and 2100 Men's Shelter, as well as the Norma Hare Women's Facility, which directly aligns with our strategic goal, where we're indicating that we want to create, for those that are in shelter, an experience that is more dignifying and humane. So that is a direct investment. We also have dollars going in to expand programming and recovery services through ARPA. We also have rental assistance dollars, rapid rehousing dollars, landlord incentives that hopefully, to your point of the affordable housing crisis that we currently have, will help be a tool to identify additional units, because right now our length of stay is going up in shelter, and it's due to not having the housing available to exit those individuals or families.
Thank you. And the other thing I would just like to highlight for everybody's attention, the system of providing an alternative in the cold winter months for people who are shelter resistant. We've been doing this for years, and it started with simply subsidizing the Metanoia project, and we then went to a procurement system, and the needs expanded rapidly during COVID-19, which was a major success story. I mean, we did way better than most of the rest of the country in keeping the COVID rates low in the unsheltered community, and so. But going forward, COVID is not the same, but the needs remain, and my understanding is that this is not specifically provided for in the budget as it currently exists. So we're going to have to take a look at that during this process and figure out what we fund, how much money is required, how we're able to collaborate with the city of Cleveland and people in the nonprofit community and try to work this out.
I appreciate that. To the chair, if I may just add, I am in agreement with you on that. We have been piecemealing it together for years. I do think it's important to note the county's investment in both 2020 Lakeside, which that should be opening in November, and we're hoping that that does bring additional individuals that are traditionally unsheltered in. I know it will not bring all, but that is our intention, as well as should the county choose to make an investment that we're currently in discussions of for an alternative shelter location, that would be at the end of the day an overarching outreach navigation center, which would then provide a permanent site.
Thank you very much.
I'd just like to add, Mr. Chair, as the director stated, she needs, in order to facilitate the $76 million, she needed additional staff from a four-member staff. That is in the budget already. The previous administration did agree to that. The problems where we're having currently are compression issues. If we bring on new staff, those that have been there for years, it will create compression issues. So we are currently working with PRC, HR, and administration to try to correct those issues so we can, hopefully by December is my deadline, to allow OHS department to move forward, especially with their strategic plan of reducing 25% homelessness, which is great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to put that on the record.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we're now going to take a short break, and we will come back promptly at 3 o'clock. Thank you very much, everybody. Committee of the Whole 2024 to 25 biennial budget process, third hearing will please come back to order. Our next presenter will be Director Shauna Rorman, Office of Early Childhood, Invest in Children.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Shauna Rorman, and I am the Director of Invest in Children in the County Office of Early Childhood. Thank you for this opportunity to come before Council today and for your support of the work that we do. Invest in Children's mission is to mobilize resources and research to ensure the well-being of all children in Cuyahoga County. We provide a continuum of targeted services, prenatal to kindergarten, for children and their families. We build awareness, we advocate, and we measure our impact. We aim to achieve equity in access to services and eliminate racial and ethnic disparities in child and family outcomes. With your support and investment, we are extremely proud of the outcomes we have achieved for children and families in Cuyahoga County. For this brief budget presentation, I'm going to focus mainly on two topics: our staffing and the strategic considerations that we are focused on over the next 2 years. I have slides. Thank you. I'm going to start with our team. As you can see in the organizational chart, we have 9 FTEs plus a fiscal specialist assigned to our office through Health and Human Services Shared Services for a total of 10 employees in our office. We currently have 1 vacancy that we are in the process of filling. Since we last presented to Council, our office has had many staffing changes. Of the 9 filled positions shown in the chart, 6 are new to our office in the last 2 years. We have a new director and recently promoted Alyssa Swiatek from Family Engagement Manager to Associate Director. We hope to fill her position and be fully staffed by the end of this year. This is a high-level overview of our budget. Nearly all of our funding goes to contracts with our lead agencies for programs serving children and families prenatal to kindergarten. This includes child and parent supports and services like home visiting and our new Family Space program, early childhood mental health in both the home and the classroom, as well as additional services to ensure childcare programs are equipped to include children with varying levels of needs, the child care system and our universal pre-K program, and our administration of the child fatality review process. About 5% of our funding goes to personnel and a little over 1% going to other costs like space and security. Looking ahead to the next 2 years, there are a couple of items that are on our radar that will shape our work. First, like many other social service sectors, and as you have already heard today, the early childhood system is facing significant workforce challenges. We are seeing this play out in early childhood education, where childcare programs are having difficulty recruiting and sometimes retaining staff. Understaffing leads programs to make the tough choice to close classrooms, which in turn leads to reduced capacity for early learning seats in our community. We are also seeing workforce challenges play out in early childhood mental health and home visiting, where we have far fewer professionals to do this work than is needed, resulting in wait lists for children and families to receive these important services. Locally, my office is working with partners in the early childhood and philanthropic communities to identify strategies to strengthen the early childhood workforce broadly, including advocacy for policy change and building the pipeline of future early childhood professionals. The second thing on our radar for the next 2 years is that we are preparing for a shift in the administration of our early childhood mental health, or ECMH, system in 2025. Currently, we co-fund this system with the Adams Board who acts as the lead agency for the ECMH system and subcontracts with 8 behavioral health agencies to provide ECMH services to children under 6 and their families. The shift in 2025 will bring procurement, contracting, invoicing, and reporting under my office's purview, with the Adams Board continuing to fund at an equal level as Invest in Children. This shift will alter our operations internally, but should not impact the operation of the system or the services to children and families. Third, Invest in Children and the Office of Early Childhood will begin a strategic planning process next month. It has been about 13 years since our last strategic plan, and much has changed in the early childhood landscape. We're really excited for this. It's an opportunity for us to identify strategies to meet the current needs of families with young children, as well as the early childhood system over about the next 3 years. So that is all I have for you today, and I am prepared to take your questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Questions by my colleagues? So I'll start then. We'll start with Councilman Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's nice seeing you.
Hello.
Thanks for talking to me twice on the phone, and I appreciate meeting you for the first time right now. You heard, you have a budget. It's pretty much the same, less. I think it was a little less, you told me.
It is less than our current funding level, but equal to our expenses.
Good. And you heard and you said it's the workforce shortage is hampering the early education component. And through the chair, it all boils down to, right, the earlier you are able to help a child to get on the right path, the more success they're going to have. And it all falls on your lap in that particular one. There's a nucleus family and all that, but just the ability to get a youngster from prenatal, you said, to at least kindergarten or pre-K. You heard from Imagination Library and the Literacy Cooperative. What were your thoughts about that?
I think the Literacy Cooperative is a really important part of our early childhood ecosystem. Dolly Parton Imagination Library is a great program. I wish I had additional funding to provide to them, but the situation that we're in is that would mean cutting programs that we already fund. I will say that there are a number of really important early literacy programs in the county as well, one of which we do fund, which is called the Spark program, and that's focused on 3 to 5 year olds. So they're, yes, they are an important part of the broader work happening on literacy in the county.
A little bit through the chair that I don't do much research, but on this one, there is some value between in the womb to 3. Was that an accurate statement?
Through the chair to Councilman Sweeney, yes.
Yes, and
80% of brain growth happens by the age of 3.
Yeah, so that, I mean, I'm not a subject matter at all, and it's having a privilege of being a council person in Cuyahoga County. It just lets me get more involved and in-depth understanding of this stuff, and it's actually incredible. So is there a, through the chair, an organization you work with that does the pre-birth to 3?
We have a number of programs that provide services prenatal to 3, yes. We work with Moms First, provides home visiting services prenatal to 18 months. Bright Beginnings provides a number of parent support services, birth through 5.
And through the chair, but for the advancement of the development of the brain or the mind. And would the Literacy Cooperative and the Dolly Parton help that?
Through the chair, they're all helping the brain in different ways. None of those programs focus explicitly on literacy, so we don't currently fund a program that focuses on early literacy from age 0 to 3.
And thank you for being patient with me here.
Sure.
And your whole budget is HHS through the chair?
About 98% of our budget through the chair, sorry.
Through the chair, are you eligible for general fund dollars as operation?
Through the chair, I don't know.
But I'll get that question answered, because you don't care what kind of funding source happens, to be able to help your budget to be able to do the things that are most critical to the advancement of our children. That,
Through the chair to the councilman, our goal is to serve families and children.
thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Director, how many early child care slots are we currently able to support, and how many do we actually have at this time?
Thank you for the question, Councilman Miller. Are you speaking about UPK specifically or the system more broadly?
UPK.
Currently, our funding level would support about 4,900 seats. The pandemic's impact on workforce has us at approximately 4,000 seats that are open. And I will get you the exact numbers, but I believe enrollment is somewhere around 3,300 or 3,400.
And does the proposed budget maintain that 4,900 as the target number that's possible?
The proposed budget would fund a system that is about the size of what is open now. So no, it will be less. The capacity will be less than 4,900. We do have some flexibility with remaining private dollars from the expansion to accommodate the regrowth of that system.
And speaking of the private dollars, when do we expect to use up all of those funds, and do we have any intentions to raise additional private dollars?
We are hoping to be able to spend those dollars down by the end of the next contract cycle, which will end in July of 2027. It really depends on how the system is able to rebound and how many providers we're able to pull in. So we will start in August of 24 with a system of about 4,150 seats, and then hope to be able to expand that as providers are able to hire and open classrooms again. So our hope is that the system grows in such a way that we'll be able to spend down those dollars by the end of 27. There are very early conversations about fundraising beyond what we have.
So it sounds like you have funding to cover as many slots as are likely to be filled, given the demand for the slot and the capability of the system to fill the positions and actually open the slots. Is that an accurate statement?
That is correct, Councilman Miller.
And you mentioned that you're cutting programs that you're currently funding. For example, what's being cut?
We have programs that we are adjusting contract sizes to reflect current spending levels. So in the child care system, for example, there are programs that we don't have enough people to, let me use early childhood mental health as a better example. We don't have enough providers in the early childhood mental health system to spend down the dollars that we had allocated in 22 and 23. We have children waiting for services, but not enough people to do the work. So we have adjusted the funding level for that program to meet the level of funding that it can spend now, and hoping that that grows back to pre-pandemic levels.
So it sounds like you're not cutting anything that there's demand for, plus there's service capability, but you don't have the money. It's not that. It's that you're cutting things where the capability is not currently out there to provide the services at a higher amount. Is that correct?
That's correct. We have reduced contracts where we just have not been able to spend the dollars because of the impact on the workforce.
Okay. What's the reason for the shift in the administration of the early childhood mental health program?
Councilman Miller, the shift is stemming from the Adams Board looking to shift the way that they procure their contracts. We had a conversation with their team, several conversations earlier this year about whether or not we wanted to continue to do a request for proposals, which is the way that we have procured, or Adams has procured, for the behavioral health agencies offering ECMH services. It was our decision that we would like to continue the RFP. Adams will not be continuing with that particular form of procurement, so we have agreed to shift the administration to invest in children, maintaining funding, equal funding on both sides.
Are there any questions, any more questions from my colleagues? Ms. Conwell, followed by Shran.
Yes,
And Turner.
thank you. Through the chair to the director, is there some coordination with the state of Ohio, with the department that kind of looks at the licensures for the providers and things like that? Are they keeping you abreast of the agencies that they're terminating or stopping? Because there's been quite a few on this end that we've been notified that have put families in displacement, so to speak.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, our office doesn't do licensing. That's Job and Family Services. But when there is a provider that has had their license terminated, Director Gowan informs me, and Nancy Mendez, who's the CEO and president of Starting Point, the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency, is also looped in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Oh, no, wait. Through the chair? I did. I thought Councilman Shran was next. But yeah, just a quick question.
Okay.
Hi. As it relates to the budget overview slide here, there's a child fatality review mentioned. Can you explain a little bit what that is and what percentage of this 93.4% does that make up?
To the chair, through the chair to the councilwoman, the percent of the percent I would have to get you.
Okay.
It is a relatively small contract for us. The child fatality review process is, I believe, and I want to caveat this by saying this is not an area that I've done a lot of work with, so some of it is new to me learning and coming into the role of the director. My understanding is that this process is mandated by the state of Ohio. A county entity has to take charge of administering that. The Office of Early Childhood administers that and has the Cuyahoga County Board of Health as the lead agency to staff that. So we have a staff person in our office who is the point person, the program manager, so to speak. And then there are several staff at the Board of Health. A registered nurse and a statistician have been the key staff people at the Board of Health to run the review process, which happens in monthly board meetings. So the Child Fatality Review Board is charged with reviewing every child death. There are a number of representatives at the table who have, at varying points, may have come into contact with that child or family. That includes the Department of Children and Family Services. It includes police. It includes hospital systems. It includes social service organizations. And the medical examiner is also at the table. So there is a review of the death record and then presentations by any of those representatives who have come into contact with that child and or family to provide background, to understand the full scope of what happened and what led to that death.
It just seemed, I was just wondering, why is it housed? Is this process housed in your agency?
That is a historical question that I will have to look into.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. President Jones.
I'd just like to follow up with that line of conversation. Is this also, when we use the term infant mortality, this is what you're addressing? Okay.
through the chair to the council president, it includes deaths 0 to 1, infant mortality. A lot of those are safe sleep issues, so the group is regularly talking about safe sleep and offering recommendations as that being something that we should address to reduce infant mortality. But it also includes homicides, gun deaths, accidental deaths, drownings, deaths as a result of abuse. It's a very wide, any cause of death.
Once you've done these reviews, how is the data used?
There is an annual, through the chair to the council president, there's an annual review, annual report that the board puts together. It comes from the Board of Health in consultation with our office as an annual overview of what the trends are, what has improved, what has gotten worse over time. One thing that has come out of the child fatality review process is our child protection teams program that is housed under Canopy and is a collaboration with the hospital systems. What we know about this child fatality review process is that it is often the first time that all of the representatives who have interacted with that child and that family have come together in the same room to share information. Child protection teams are a way to facilitate that information sharing process before a death happens and hopefully prevent deaths from happening. So that is one key and recent important outcome where the data from the child fatality review have been used.
So you serve almost as a facilitator for all those connected around?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a comment, if I can.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. And I just want to say that Invest in Children is one of the most successful departments and actually acclaimed nationally for the programs they spearheaded ahead of their time and look to, from the state nationally on how they model early childhood programs. Through the Committee of Education, we've been able to fund fully these programs up until now. There seems to be an adjustment period, not only within, but without, with a lot of factors converging to make this difficult to do what has been done in the past. So I would like to see that the programs that have proven to be successful be looked at, funding for those programs that we know are successful. When it comes to Dolly Parton, that's really important too, but these programs we know work, and it's really important that those are funded properly. And I just wanted to make those statements. We'll be looking further into this issue, and it's connected to workforce like everything else too. So we've got to see how to pay. I think part of it's the pay, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I mean, our UP, go ahead.
I was just going to
No,
say
go
thank
ahead.
you. I was just going to say thank you. Through the chair to the
Yeah, so we'll be getting together on this. The UPK program is, when the councilman asked, Sweeney asked about what are we doing, those age groups, it's UPK. It's coming in early on as possible. We've covered every phase almost of 0 to life. Kindergarten. So that's the focus. And so we've really got to make sure that these programs are able to function properly.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, thank you. Thank you for your support.
So I also totally share Councilwoman Simon's enthusiasm for the importance, effectiveness, and success of these programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Miller.
Okay, next we're going to call Director Robin Martin for the Family and Children First Council.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Council Chair and Councils. Okay. The Family and Children First Council began in 1994 across the state as a cross-system collaboration for multi-system youth. And the council coordinate with families and youth-serving organizations across issues of cross-system planning, resource sharing, and program development based on identified service gaps. Council members engage families to learn what works for them and plan with them to achieve goals related to the well-being of children, youth, families, and the community.
She's pulling it up for you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. While we're waiting, I would like to address through the chair to the Councilwoman Turner regarding the child death review. It actually started in Family and Children First Council, and the staff person that managed it from Family and Children First Council moved over to the HHS main office. And when that person moved on to another position, there was a decision made to move it to the Office of Early Childhood in connection with the mortality rate across Cuyahoga County. They use
That's
me as the
informative. Yeah, thank you.
historian.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, on my first slide, this gives an overview of who's on the Family and Children First Council. Our office, we are not the council. The council is made up of the list of agencies that you see listed here. We're also required in the Ohio Revised Code to have 3 parents who have had services from at least one of the various agencies listed here. The agencies come together to do the planning that I mentioned earlier. And here's a list of the Family and Children First Council staff. The staff actually does the work related to council issues. Right now, I'm sorry, that switched. We are divided into 2 areas. This is the first time, I want to say in about 15 years, that we've been fully staffed, but we are. We're divided into, actually this is 3 areas, even though it looks like 2. The first area is youth development, and we have contracts related to youth development, and we pick up where the Office of Early Childhood leaves off at kindergarten, and we go through graduation, although sometimes we have college students coming back either to assist us or to ask for guidance. And then, and that area reports to Kathy Stewart, who was with me today. And then we also have service coordination, and service coordination, since the last time we were before council, has divided into 2 areas. The first area of service coordination is the work that's connected to our mandate, where we do cross-system planning for families, and we work with families who are at risk of relinquishing custody of their kids to obtain a service. There is no child abuse or neglect, but they need something either in the mental health, developmental disabilities, or multiple systems. They have a need that the family cannot meet, their insurance cannot meet, and they're reaching out to us for assistance. And then we have a second group under service coordination. They are special assessors that work out of our office, and they work doing assessments for the Department of Children and Family Services related to the Family Services Prevention Act. Our budget is $5,519,544. And under service coordination, we spend $783,174. 68% of that is state funding and 32% is levy funding. The reason it's so small in comparison to the work that we do is because we draw down from the child's insurance to pay for other services. We do a needs strengths assessments for the Department of Children and Family Services. It's revenue generating, so based on the assessments we do on their behalf, they're able to draw down 4E funding from the federal government. And then for our youth development contracts, we spend $4,031,996, and that's 100% levy funding. Some of the budget considerations that we're working on for this year. So under service coordination, we are linked to Ohio Rise. They're our partner. And right now, what the state has us working with families that have private insurance or families who have tried through their Medicaid to receive services through Ohio Rise and have been unsuccessful and request to work with us. But we try to collaborate on those families because we're working with the same population of young people. We're also looking at our wraparound funding and some state changes related to the funding. They've increased our allocation, but some of the rules around it have changed, and so we're trying to fix that as we move forward through this state fiscal year. We are also one of 3 departments. We are the first group to leave Ohio Department of Job and Family Services to go under the newly formed Department of Children and Youth Services at the state level. Not sure what that means at this point, because other than changing their emails, they really haven't told us a lot of what that's going to change, but we are working with them to figure that out. We are also looking earlier Scott mentioned that there has been an 8% increase in teen suicide. And as you see, we work with a lot of young people. And so we're looking at, as we outreach to the young people directly, not just through programs, but we also work with them directly. How can we promote that message across our programming to address suicide prevention? We're also looking to reestablish our crisis bed. As Jackie Fletcher mentioned last week, we had issues with provider rates as well. And so last year, our crisis bed was offline, but we're looking to bring it back online this year because we've been able to address the provider rate. And we're also looking to participate in shared council issues. And one example is the Child Wellness Campus, working with the Department of Children and Family Services and the other agencies to address the kids that have needs in that area. With the assessments, we will continue to implement and enhance that process. We just began doing the assessments for Children and Family Services in February. And so we are working with Children's Services, the Prosecutor's Office, and the Juvenile Court to refine that process. And lastly, we will continue to work with our 9 contractors who work across 15 youth-serving organizations and lead agencies to provide services in the community. And we are also, like everyone else, working with those agencies to rebuild capacity based to our pre-COVID numbers. And with that, I'm ready to take your questions.
Questions by my colleagues?
I just have one quick one. Through the chair to the director, Ohio Rise is new to us, maybe about 1.5 years. Do you have any timeline? Did they give you any timeline when they're going to really start? I know it was a 2-year when it first started. Any timeline when they're going to shed some light on the direction that they're going?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, they've actually already started. I think, like everyone else, they're struggling with staffing issues. We have 2 providers in Cuyahoga County. On the west side, we have Ohio Guidestone. The central part of the county is Positive Education Program, formerly PEP Connections. And the east side of the county is Ravenwood. And they fluctuate. Right now, PEP is the only organization accepting new referrals. Last I spoke to them, and I meet with them once a month, Ravenwood and Ohio Guidestone were at capacity, not because all of their slots are filled, but due to staffing issues, they cannot take on any new cases now. So we are, they're asked, because they've asked, could we pick up some of the cases that they were not able to serve? So it is truly a collaboration with us, even more so than what they're expecting at the state level, on the local level, because we have to make sure that our families are not slipping through the cracks.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry, and I'd add, actually, they're expecting the rollout to take about 5 years. Full rollout.
It's the first time I heard that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilwoman Turner, did I see a question? No. Then we go to President Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Robin, simple question. Who, between Invest in Children and yourself, from birth to 12th grade, who actually handles the support of the kindergartens? Is it 0 to K, or you K to 12, or
It's Family and Children First Council. We pick up at the beginning of kindergarten. So some of the things we have done, we found out years ago that kindergarten is not just traumatic for the child, it's also traumatic for the parent. So we have programming, some programming, not a lot, but we do things like kindergarten clubs so that young people can get introduced to the building prior to starting kindergarten. They know where the bathrooms are located. They know who their teacher's going to be. They know where their cubby is. Just kind of doing that introduction to kindergarten. And we've done it across, not all of our school districts, but some. And then we also promote kindergarten registration because we did know that I think at the time it was about 80% of our kindergartners were registered for kindergarten up to the first month after kindergarten started. And so there's a big push to families and across the community to register our young people for kindergarten. And we also worked with 211 because what we found is that if you had 7 things that you needed to start kindergarten, there were 5 that were consistent across all districts, but there may have been 2 that were different in various districts. So we actually had all of the districts share with 211 what was required for registration so families can call and get that information.
Next, I saw the teen suicide. What is the distinction between what you do and what Adams Board does in terms of suicide? Or how do you overlap or partner if so?
We still need to have some conversations about that. I know a lot of Adams is primarily geared towards adults, and we're looking specifically at what's happening with young people. We've had an increase. We've had some kids, unfortunately, in our programs that have been victims of suicide, and we see a increase with our service coordination kids in suicide attempts. And so we felt that it was enough that we actually needed to do something. And so our plan is to sit down with the Adams Board to figure out what's in their area and then what can we do so that we can have the best bang for our buck.
Thank you. And last, closing the achievement gap is housed within your department. What is the budget for this cycle for closing the achievement gap, if you know off the top of your head?
I would have to get that and send it to you, but I would say ballpark about $1.2 million.
Okay. How many schools?
There are 7 schools, 9 buildings.
Great. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Ms. Conwell.
Through the chair to director, on that line of questioning, do you have the YALC Youth Advisory Leadership Coalition under your budget?
To the chair, to the councilwoman through the chair, yes, we do.
Okay, so is there any changes with that in terms of funding? I haven't heard it. No one has called me. The director, Du Bois, hasn't reached out to me, but I've heard something, some grumblings or something that there was there some change in funding?
There was actually an increase in their funding. So what we did was we sat down and looked at our budget even prior to the budget process beginning. And we looked at spending with all of our vendors over the last 3 years. And we were able to redirect funds where people were underspending,
Okay.
shifting from some of what was overspent so that we could right-size our budget. And actually, the YLC received an increase.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
It was small, but they still received an increase.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And rounding out today's session is Director Simeon Best, Office of Reentry.
Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Simeon Best. I am the Director of the Cuyahoga County Office of Reentry. The Office of Reentry exists to successfully support the process of reintegrating people back into society after they have been incarcerated in a correctional facility, such as a prison or jail. Of the 88 counties in Ohio, Cuyahoga County continues to receive the highest number of returning citizens on an annual basis. Last year, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Corrections reported that there were 1,912 commitments to Cuyahoga County. Looking locally, our jail, in August of this year, the jail reported having 1,459 individuals listed on its master inmate register report. So it's obvious that individuals are consistently being released into our communities with complex needs, and there's no one single answer to resolve those complex needs. So the Office of Reentry's mission is to strengthen a network of community partners by coordinating innovative programs and services that assure quality opportunities needed for a successful reintegration. Our office provides direct funding, and just to be clear, our funding is 100% levy funded. So we provide this funding to community agencies and organizations assisting returning citizens. We play a pivotal role in leading a countywide reentry strategy that addresses barriers, challenges, and policies impeding an individual's successful reentry into society. So the biannual budget for 2024 and 25 supports this vital work carried out by our office, allowing us to address these pressing reentry issues and fulfill our mission. Our staff, we have 6 full-time employees. Right now, we currently have 1 vacancy, and we are hoping that by early next year, we can have that vacancy filled. So the 2024-25 budget allows for us to continue these pre- and post-release services to our community. As you can see, we have the Aspire. This is pre-release Aspire adult transition model and expanded transitional services. We find out transitional services, individuals going into the facilities, and really our state facilities, doing assessments, and developing a reentry plan is really helpful in people being successful. And then we have our post-release services with our North Star, our chief staffing, our reentry resource guide, our legal clinics with Case Western Reserve University and CSU, and what we released earlier, just a couple weeks ago, our justice housing plan. In addition to our budget, we continue to seek out additional funding sources to support additional programs and services. Last year, we applied and were awarded $1 million from the Bureau of Justice Assistance for a Pay for Success grant in reducing recidivism and for achieving housing, education, and employment advancement among restored citizens here in Cuyahoga County. We've also collaborated with other government entities just this year to submit an application with the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention. We're waiting to hear about the results of that application. Some new initiatives, new things that we have going on. A jail reentry store, which you might have heard about already. We're working this in collaboration with the Cuyahoga County Public Defender's Office and, of course, with the jail to provide basic hygiene items, clothing items, and gift cards for food purchases to individuals who have been categorized as indigent while in the jail. Also, in partnership with the Public Defender's Office and with our law clinics or legal clinics, we have created continuing legal education sessions, which can be requested by communities if they want the group to come in. The goal of these sessions is to allow individuals the opportunity to ask questions about expungements, child support, pardons, CQEs, which is Certificate of Qualification for Employment, and anything else. We are also looking to establish an additional neighborhood reentry resource center that will have an emphasis on youth and adolescents. We really wanted to get, as an office, we want to get into the space of juvenile justice. And so it'll be another neighborhood reentry resource center, but we'll have a focus on juveniles. And lastly, and I failed to put this one up there, we have started a pilot program with the with the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction that aims to strengthen our efforts in identifying and supporting individuals returning to our county. The pilot will focus on supporting individuals with housing, workforce development, equipment and supplies if they need it, assessments and treatments, transportation, along with other identified needs. So as we move forward, the office will continue to promote education, training, housing, and employment of individuals leaving incarceration. This will promote second chances, and as well successful reintegration. It will also increase public safety and reduce recidivism. And that's all. I will take questions.
Thank you very much, Director. Questions by my colleagues? Councilman Tron.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Are you working at all with the sector partnership in regards to their second chance program for training individuals and then moving them into qualified jobs in the manufacturing sector? I know that there's been, I think, well over 200 people placed in that sector partnership, and I hope you're coordinating. I didn't see it listed on any of your activities. Of the 200 individuals, my understanding is there's not been one single day of recidivism out of that group. And Magnet is, we as a county are helping to fund that, so this is one in which you ought to show up on your scorecard as a positive thing, I would think.
Absolutely. Through the chair to the councilman. So we have, I failed to mention here that we have a coalition, a reentry coalition, and so we have a workforce development section on the coalition, and that's the work that they do. They kind of reach out to the partners. I've met with Magnet. I've met with the hospital sector partnerships as well. So just understanding what they're doing, seeing we make sure that we send some of our returning citizens to them who are looking to be employed and be trained and things like that. So we are working with them, but we don't have a direct relationship.
You don't have a direct relationship?
Outside of we don't have any type of contract with them, but we do work with them through our coalition.
Okay, well, I would highly suggest you get over there and make sure you understand how they're doing it and what they're doing, because it seems like it's a successful program. I know in our own company, we've got a number of individuals who come through the program, and they're just phenomenal. And so I would highly suggest you get over there and see what they're doing, because it's a real transitional vehicle that's working. It's almost like Edwin's up there as far as how the success we're having in a different sector, one food and one in manufacturing.
Absolutely, and just to support that, what we do is through our Neighborhood Reentry Resource Center. So as people go to that center, which is funded through us, they will then funnel them to like Magnet or to any of the partner sectors. So we are kind of connected that way. But I will follow up definitely, for sure.
So, Director, the Neighborhood Youth Resource Center, is that going to be at North Star, or is it going to be at a different location?
A different location. They will service adults, and they will also have that component of youth as well.
And do you have a location selected?
It looks like it's going to be on West 29th. So this is through Catholic Charities.
Okay. Anything else?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, yes.
Simeon, tell me again, how many FTEs do you have in your department?
6.
6. And what is your overall budget?
2.7. That's the entire budget.
7 million.
A little bit over that.
I had a meeting today with 2 young ladies for ACLU, I believe, and they were focusing on just helping the reentry population, again, the juvenile population too. And when you mentioned that as well, it made me think about how everyone partners and connects. I'm not exactly sure how this department works with the juvenile, with that world, how, if you already have existing connections or you plan on having some type of contractual connections. Help me to understand where you connect with the juvenile justice system.
So the Office of Reentry has not had any dealings in the juvenile justice space, and so that's just been a desire of ours since I've been here to kind of expand to that. So I've had several meetings with DYS. I've had meetings with the Juvenile Detention Center, just kind of understanding where the gaps are and trying to define that. And so we had a thought that if we do another Neighborhood Reentry Resource Center, let's have this juvenile component here so that as they have individuals who are leaving DYS, they can kind of funnel them funnel them through to our center once it gets set up. So that's kind of where we are now, but we're looking to expand on that.
Okay. If you would, reach out to our Levine Ross, and I'd like for her to connect you with those individuals we met with earlier. There may be some opportunities there.
Absolutely.
Okay. Next, I visited the community-based correctional facility. I'd been there 10 years earlier and just visited again, and I was really impressed with the fact that just a calendar on the wall of programming every day. There was programming activities for the individuals that were there. Obviously, they leave during the day and come back for work, but it was underutilized. They have 209 beds, I would say, and about 100 people there. So I look at that facility as underutilized, and maybe say our county jail is overutilized. Okay. So the challenge, I looked at it and said, well, I'd love to see that type of programming not only in our county jail, but in the Juvenile Justice Center, as you mentioned as well. For me, it was a visual of what could be there to help impact the culture that you find there. Do you work to put programming in, and what you showed with us today, like the jail reentry store, are you a part of putting programming in our own county jail?
Yes, to the chair, to the council president. So I've worked with the jail. So we have programming with Aspire, that basic adult education program there. We have had several meetings with the jail since then to expand on programming, but we were told at the time that they were short staffed, and so they couldn't really support that. They didn't have capacity to kind of like people to oversee those programming. So we are looking to expand the programming in the jail, just waiting for that opportunity to be open. It was things like I think it was like maybe some financial literacy, things like that we could have in the jail. But again, they needed to have more staff to oversee, people coming in and running those programs.
Well, I would love if there were any partnerships between you and the jail and for programming. There's always every 2 years.
Absolutely.
Would love to see, an improvement in this area, in the culture of all of our facilities. Just what I thought of was in the jail, most individuals are thinking about how I'm going to win my court case. When do I see my lawyer? Although they're not sentenced yet. So when it comes to programming, it's probably, I would love something that meets the needs of those who are right there in that facility, which might be slightly different from someone who was serving a sentence in a correctional facility. So I think that's an area of opportunity for us in the coming years.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
So, Director, you mentioned the 1,912 that came from the state. Substantial as that number is, am I correct that number is actually significantly lower than it was perhaps 5 or 10 years ago?
To the chair, yes. That is correct. That number actually only represents the individuals who have been enrolled in Medicaid prior to being released. So that number represents 70% of those who actually do return back to, Cuyahoga County. The state has informed us, that's the best number that they can give us. Maybe, I think their tracking has changed since a few years ago. So that number represents those who are enrolled in Medicaid only.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a comment.
Yes.
The chair. I didn't want to miss this opportunity, Director Best, to mention that in your mission it states that you're committed to strengthening a network of community partners by coordinating innovative programs and services. And so I just want to thank you and your staff for what I think is a unique partnership between one of the local fraternities and sororities and myself through my official capacity as counsel to host an expungement clinic. We've partnered for the last 2 years to do that at John F. Kennedy High School, and It made me think about the fact that, and shout out to Cullen Sweeney and the Office of the Public Defender as well. And there was a whole lot of other partners involved in this partnership, but we need to follow up and figure out data-wise how many people have actually been utilizing this program. But the best part about this day for me is seeing all the other wraparound services that we've been able to place in one location for the reentry community that is actually utilizing this program. So I just wanted to publicly thank you and your staff for your commitment to this service. And if you could talk a little bit about CEO, and they're one of the vendors and their role with the Office of Reentry and other partners, but what comes to mind is our partnership with CEO. If you could talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely.
On the workforce end especially.
Absolutely. So working with, again, we are focused on really strengthening our community partners. We realize that we can't do this work by ourselves, and so Reentry Week is a time for us to really come together and really highlight, really raise the awareness of what people are actually going through as they come out, and then their successes. So partnering with you all, partnering with CEO who does that, they have all of the second chance employers. Not all of them, but they have a lot of second chance employers, and they link individuals up with those employers. They have a work training crew, people go through that and get trained and are skilled up, and they are employed. And so we rely on these relationships, right? We can't do this work by ourselves. And so it's important to us, and it's important that we continue these relationships as we are trying to just make sure that people have a successful transition back into society.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank everybody for their participation, and note that next week is the 1 week where we have 2 budget hearings. We have a hearing on Monday, October 30th at 1 o'clock, and also on Thursday, November 2nd, also at 1 o'clock, we'll be hearing a lot of the key general fund departments at that time. So I encourage everybody's attendance. And I would now ask if anyone has any miscellaneous business.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just wanted to state earlier my line of questioning earlier of the Adams Board is part of my duty as an elected council member and part of the role council plays during the biennial budget. So my line of questioning does not negate my feelings that the need for mental health and drug services are needed in Cuyahoga County. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Anything else?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Just
Ms.
want to
Simon.
tell Councilwoman Conwell it was very clear, so we know where you are. Yeah, exactly. No, for sure. Exactly.
Okay. Anything else? There being nothing else, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much.